Well, good morning, everyone. It's my pleasure to welcome you to the National Extension Centennial Convocation, a gathering to celebrate the signing of the Federal Smith-Lever Act, which took place on May 8, 1914, that created federal funding for the Cooperative Agricultural Extension System that we know today as Cooperative Extension, a network of over 3,100 county extension offices that extend the reach of land-grant university from border to border, from corner to corner across this great country. Now, if you're here today and one, you found the bus this morning, you safely boarded the bus, you passed through security and screening, you found the breakfast buffet, and you're now seated in the auditorium, we have a gold star waiting for you. I believe there's a reason we do these events only once every 100 years, and part of it's the planning and logistics of making it happen. I have the pleasure of also sharing some brief housekeeping items with you so it doesn't disrupt our program as we get started today. First off, we want to thank our platinum sponsors, Mississippi State University and the National Rural Electric Cooperative Association, and our gold sponsor, Farm Credit, for their contributions to make this event happen. Other levels of sponsorship are listed in your program, and I encourage you to take an opportunity to thank those people as you see them. We ask you to remain seated during the parade of states' flags, and at the conclusion of the flags, we will have Clover and Company come lead us in the National Anthem, and at that point in time, they will ask you when to stand. I need to remind you that we're not supposed to have food and drink here. So if you happen to pass through the door with food and drink, I would just say be cautious with it, and we'd ask you after the breaks and after lunch, don't bring food and drinks back in here. Lunch is going to be served in the atrium. There will not be a program during lunch because of the atrium environment and because a lot of us just like to visit and catch up with old friends, and so please take advantage of that opportunity. And remember, as I said last night, we encourage you to tweet using hashtag CE100 throughout the day. Part of our speakers are going to talk about the use of technology and extension, and we're trying to see what happens if we tweet a conference that gets reboosted from several state tweeters that are watching us online. My name is Doug Steele. I'm the director of Texas AgriLife Extension Service and service co-chair of the Centennial Task Force. I'm actually stepping in the position that was going to be Jimmy Henning, the chair of ECOP, Extension Committee on Organization Policy. Under doctor's advisements, Dr. Henning's not traveling right now, and he sends his regrets that he couldn't be here. And I know Jimmy would appreciate your thoughts and prayers as he continues to recover, and we get him back working full-time. If there's anyone in our whole system that would want to be here, it's Dr. Henning, and I know he appreciates the fact that we're carrying on with the program, and we're going to have time to celebrate not only the legacy of our past, but also creating our future together. If you look in the program, you'll see a welcome from Dr. Henning. You'll see some really great historical facts and quotes about Smith-Lever, including the quote from Woodrow Wilson, which I think is a great quote. You'll see our agenda for today. You'll see more detailed speaker bios in what we'll have during the program, the complete sponsorship list, and you'll also see the members of the Centennial Task Force. Many of us are here today, and if you see them, please thank them for their efforts. What a great day to be in our nation's capital, to acknowledge the first 100 years of cooperative extension. In fact, if you look in the program, the quote, I want to read this from President Wilson, is one of the most significant and far-reaching measures for the education of adults ever adopted by this country. Think of the magnitude on May 8th, 1914, when he penned those words and signed this act. Provide funding for cooperative extension to exist in a partnership with county and state government. Very uniquely American idea, and I would argue did change the face of education throughout our country. Early in my career, there were two publications that greatly influenced my philosophy of extension and the work we do. The first one was a publication that was actually printed in 1969 called A People in a Spirit. And my first trainer agent, who'd been in extension almost 40 years, came to me my first day at work and put that on my desk. And he said, Doug, being in 4-H and doing the things I did, he said, when you take a career in extension and sit on the opposite side of the desk, you might have a different view for what it means to do that. And he talked about the value of education and the value of knowledge and the value of subject matter. But the message he gave to me that day in 1981, and the one that stayed with me for the past 33 years, is the value of relationships with people. We are privileged to be in a career where we get to help people, and not a lot of people can say that. And I often say that Extension really is a calling, because if it's a career, you can go other places and make more money, you can do other things, but you will never have the opportunity to get to do what we do. And so it's such a pleasure to have you with us. The other publication that had a profound effect on me, I read in graduate school, a text called Diffusion of Innovation by Everett Rogers. Everett Rogers was a communication specialist at the University of New Mexico. And he talked about how do you outline social change, and specifically, what is the role of Extension in social change? Now, that scares a lot of people when you talk about social change. But I think the kind of change we promote is good for the individual, the family, the community, and for society as a whole. And he says this. He wrote about the value of Extension in reaching out to the innovators and early adopters that are going to be on the forefront of leading that change in communities. He talked about how we bring on the late adapters and the influencers that can help us promote better practices and make knowledge available outside the land-grant university itself. And he talked about the role of Extension as change agents in society. And a lot of the work that we do, we have to get up thinking, what is that change in mind? And so as we come together on this very historic day, I hope that we don't forget those that have come before us, that were our mentors, our friends, our instructors, our county agents, a specialist that made a difference in our lives. But we also remember that we today have an opportunity to define who we are and what we will be in the future. We have an opportunity to define our future by design and not by default. We have a day to celebrate the past and, more importantly, the future of Extension. Please remain seated for our parade of state flags, and then we will welcome Clover and Company from Georgia to lead us in our national anthem.
We are honored to be at this historic event. Through Cooperative Extension, 4-H has impacted millions of students' lives. Please stand as we present the National Anthem. Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we held at the twilight's last gleaming, whose but stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight o'er the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming,
and the rocket's red glare, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof to the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say does that star-spangled banner yet wave o'er the land of the free and the home of the brave?
Good morning. Let's give them another round of applause, please. My name is Delbert Foster. I'm the chair of Association of Extension Administrators, and I am here to welcome you. First, let me begin on behalf of all the total Cooperative Extension System and wishing our chairman, Dr. Jimmy Henning, a fast and speedy recovery. On a personal note, as a South Carolinian, the border state of Senator Smith from Georgia, and the home state of Representative Levy, I am extremely excited to be here this morning with you to help celebrate the Smith-Levy Act and the 100th anniversary of the Centennial celebration for Cooperative Extension. 100 years ago, May 8th, 1914, President Wilson signed this law into act into law. However, this law did not go far enough. Thus, you had two amendments by Representative Evans, which created the 1890 universities, and in 1994, which created the Native American land-grant universities. The signing of this extraordinary progressive piece of legislation established a cooperative extension system that's a model for the world. But why do we celebrate? Why do we celebrate birthdays? Why do we celebrate anniversaries? Why do we celebrate occasions such as this? One author said, people of our time are losing the power of celebration. Instead of celebrating, we seek to be amused or entertained. Celebration is an active state, an act of expressing reverence or appreciation. To be entertained is a passive state. It is to receive pleasure afforded by an amusing act or spectacle. Celebration, on the other hand, is a confrontation, giving attention to the transcendent meaning of one's action, purpose, or result. What is the Centennial Convocation designed to do? It's designed to have us reflect. It's designed to have us revitalize and to remind ourselves of what the Cooperative Extension System is designed to do. It's designed to uplift. It's designed to enhance. It's designed to motivate one to do for oneself what one may not think or thought they could have done. To overview the convocation design, which is forward-looking and progressive. It involves every aspect of the family, the county, the state, and the federal government. The convocation is being taped for later reference. But I want to leave you with a charge to continue to be inclusive, to continue to invite and use the resources on our campuses, at our institutions, to the betterment of all people for all time, and more importantly, to express the appreciation to everyone in our family for the work that we do. I am Extension. You are Extension. We are Extension. Happy birthday, and thank you. Now we have Peter McPherson. That was not in my script, but this is Extension. Remove and adjust.
I love Delbert's line. I am an Extension, we are Extension. What a nice beginning of this. Well, this is a wonderful celebration. I would enjoy spending my short period of time up here telling you about the McPherson family's engagement with 4-H and county extension systems, but I can't do it all. I had 7 brothers and sisters, and we're all involved in 4-H. Our 4-H county extension agent, by the way, was Russ Mulby. which is a real something. My father was so involved with dairy and fruit there in West Michigan, the extension agent. There's stories I've told some of you before about taking a big slice of my sister's pie before I went out to milk the cows one morning, only to realize that her pie was going to the state show. It was going a day early. There's all these stories, and I know so many of you have similar stories. Extension 4-H has been important in our lives. And this is a day to celebrate those stories and those lives over these generations that have been impacted by 4-H and Extension. Of course, to think back on the history, Extension the Smith-Lever Act built on quite a history in itself. You go way back earlier when the state fairs and the county fairs were created. Those people had a vision to not just have local communities get together, but to disseminate agricultural technique and practices. When you look at what was happening in the land-grant universities, really from the beginning there was some engagement of farmers, but it became steadily greater. It's interesting that Lever was a trustee of Clemson University and looked to the Clemson plan. It's interesting that Smith was the former senator but former governor of the state of Georgia, and he knew University of Georgia well. And of course, Knapp had spent his time visiting various schools there at Iowa State and some other places, but much of what he did was in the South and developed these important ideas. So the history, and by the way, it seems like, I think we should note that it wasn't only in the South that extension, that the idea was developed. It's important to say that, but a huge push for Smith-Lever did come from the South. Note the leadership. And it came from the South because there were, when you look at the per capita income and the agricultural productivity of the South in 1900, there was a major set of issues. And these people said, look, we've got to do something. They had a big issue. There were other issues around the country, but I think that Southern history is worth noting. Well, I think about extension, and the truth is that given my family's involvement, I think about it often. Now as president of APLU and former president of Michigan State University for a long time, I've thought about it often a lot. It's a wonderful thing to celebrate. It's a celebration of the act, but it's really a celebration of what we were able to do. The impact upon people, upon communities, that's what you celebrate. But that celebration of the past, in my view, in an event like this, is the beginning. The celebration, the dedication in many ways, is about the future. This is what we did when we celebrated, rededicated in some ways, the Moral Act a year ago when we had its 150th anniversary. When you think about the future, and let me talk about it with you for a moment. We've got some real strengths. We've got the involvement in virtually all the counties and regions in the state. Some of that's been adjusted in recent years, but there's still very deep involvement in the state. We have this commitment to solving problems. This movement, a moment ago, someone talked about this as being a movement, extension is and I think that's the way to think about it. We have these engagements back to campus. Some of them are stronger than others, and that's, of course, a question. But we have this engagement back to the campus and the scholarship and the creation of knowledge. I mean, there's this triad, this engagement, the research, and the education. we've got all those strengths, those principles, if you will. And I think as we apply those strengths, those opportunities to the future, we're going to have to do some important additional changes, in my view. I mean, we've always changed, so that's not a big thing. And I think our history, our celebration today is based upon our willingness to go after big problems. We're not just maintenance people. We're looking at solving big problems. Clearly, much of the work we're doing now is important and we need to continue to do it, but I suggest there's some other things that you may consider. I probably should quickly point out that given the vitality of extension around the country, nothing I could say up here somebody isn't already doing, so I will suggest that. But I think that one of the big issues we need to work at is our higher education system. The figure that is so stark to me is that the bottom quartile of income in this country, the sons and daughters of that group, 8% of them get college degrees. Of the top 25% in income, 85% of them get college degrees. What a difference. Now, what do we do about that? Now, the whole universities need to work at this, but we're out in all these counties. We're in touch with K-12 systems and so on. I suggest that, and we've got our 4-H system. 4-H is maybe 10% of that age group in most states or less. 10% is a lot of students, of course, I'll agree to that. But what can we do with what we have? I think about Michigan or Ohio or some other places. What if the extension system were to make a major commitment to helping to encourage low-income, economic disadvantaged students to go to college? It's not just what you would, not just to Michigan State, not just to Ohio State, not just to University of Illinois, but the whole system of higher education, public education probably, our universities, our community colleges. You can tease this out, and some of you are already doing this. But I would suggest that this 8% versus 85% is a big issue that could motivate and grab us, and I think it's worth thinking about in its various ways and methods. What about health? Again, many of you are already involved in this, but is there a coherent plan that on a state-by-state or even national level we could think about? The disparities I talk about in terms of higher education, they're not quite as stark because of Medicaid and so forth, but they're pretty stark in terms of the health outcomes of low-income people versus those in the upper income quartiles. I don't want to limit my suggestions only to these, but I would say that Smith-Lever was passed on the idea, on the big idea. The South and the country needed to have higher levels of agricultural productivity, further economic and social development. In the South particularly at the time, but really they saw it nationally. So what is our big idea or big ideas as we go forward? In short, this is a celebration of wonderful things. I'm extremely complimentary of the work that extension agents do around this country, 4-H agents. And my interest is being in whatever help I can be to you as you think about the big issues and the big challenges in the future. Thank you for today.
Thank you, Dr. McPherson. He's a product of land-grant university. He's been a president of land-grant university and now is president of our Association of Public Land-Grant Universities. It's great to have leadership that understands who we are and what we do, and a very important partner in our work.